Unaware his wife secretly owned the company he bragged about, he divorced her the day he got promoted. He handed her the divorce papers with a smile on his face. He was wearing his brand new suit. He had just gotten the biggest promotion of his life. He felt like he was finally free. He felt like he was finally the man he always wanted to be. What he did not know was that the signature on his promotion letter belonged to his wife, and she had already signed something else too. His termination letter. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button right now. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Rachel's strength be ignored and neglected the way her husband ignored and neglected her. When you click that button, you stand with every woman who was at her weakest and still chose to stand. Please subscribe now and drop a comment below telling us where you are watching from. Ryan Carter was not a bad man from the start. That is the first thing you need to understand about this story. He was not evil. He was not wicked from the start. He was just a man who let success go to his head. He was a man who let pride slowly poison everything good that was around him. And by the time he realized what he had done, it was too late. Everything was already gone. Ryan was tall, well-dressed, and the kind of man who walked into a room and immediately wanted everyone to notice him. He had a sharp smile and an even sharper mouth. He always had something to say. He always had a way of making himself sound more important than everyone else around him. His co-workers called him charming. His friends called him confident. His wife, after 7 years of marriage, had started calling him something else quietly in her heart. But she never said it out loud. Not yet. His wife was a woman named Kate Carter. She was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from being shy or weak. She was the kind of quiet that comes from a woman who has seen enough of life to know that the loudest person in the room is usually the one with the least to say. She was calm. She was steady. She smiled in a way that made people feel safe, and she had a mind that worked like a machine, sharp and fast, and always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. When Ryan and Kate got married 7 years before this story begins, they were in a good place. Ryan had just gotten a mid-level job at a company called Crestwood Solutions, a consulting firm that helped other businesses grow. He was proud of that job. He talked about it all the time. Kate had her own small work she was doing from home, or at least that is what Ryan thought. He never asked too many questions about what Kate did. He just assumed she did little things, small things, things that were not as important as what he did. That was his first mistake. Kate never corrected him. She just smiled. She kept doing what she was doing, and what she was doing was a lot more than Ryan ever imagined. In the early days of their marriage, things were sweet. Ryan would come home from work and Kate would have dinner ready. Not because she had to, but because she liked it. She liked the routine of it. She liked the feeling of sitting across from her husband and sharing a meal. She liked the quiet moments in the evening when they would sit on the couch and Ryan would tell her about his day and she would listen. She was always listening. Ryan liked that about her. He liked having someone who listened. He liked having someone who made him feel big. And Kate, because she loved him, gave him that freely. She supported his dreams. She pushed him to apply for promotions. She stayed up late helping him prepare presentations. She proofread his emails. She gave him ideas that he would later present at work and get praised for. But as the years passed, something changed in Ryan. The more successful he became at work, the more he started to look at Kate differently. Not with more love, with less. He started to look at her like she was a piece of furniture in his life. Something comfortable, something familiar, something that was just always there and did not need much attention. He stopped asking how her day was. He stopped noticing when she got a new hairstyle. He stopped saying thank you. He started coming home late and giving no explanation. He started taking phone calls in the car before he came inside. He started comparing Kate to other women. Not out loud at first, but Kate could feel it. The way he looked at her had changed. The warmth was leaving his eyes slowly, like a fire running out of wood. And then there was Linda. Linda was a woman Ryan worked with at Crestwood Solutions. She was loud in all the ways Kate was quiet. She wore expensive perfume and short skirts, and she laughed at all of Ryan's jokes, even when they were not funny. She made Ryan feel exciting. She made him feel like he was the most interesting man in the world. Ryan told himself it was nothing, just a friendship, just a co-worker he enjoyed talking to. But Kate noticed the way Ryan's phone would light up late at night. She noticed how he would turn the screen away. She noticed how he started caring more about how he looked before he left for work. She noticed all of it, and yet she said nothing. Not because she was weak, but because she was watching and waiting and doing what she had always done best. planning. Now this is where the story starts to get really interesting. Kate had not been sitting at home doing nothing for 7 years. Far from it. 3 years before Ryan ever got his job at Crestwood Solutions, Kate had started a company, a small consulting firm. She had started it with her own money, her own ideas, and her own 2 hands. She had built it from nothing, one client at a time, one deal at a time, one sleepless night at a time. The company had grown, slowly at first, and then very fast. By the time Ryan was celebrating his 3rd year at Crestwood Solutions and bragging to his friends about what a great company it was, that company had been quietly acquired, bought out, swallowed up by a larger holding group. The holding group was called Meridian Partners, and Meridian Partners was owned by Kate, not in her own name, not in a way that anyone would easily find if they looked. Kate was smart enough to know that the business world could be harsh to women who showed their hand too early, so she had structured things carefully. She had used a series of holding companies and legal arrangements to keep her name quiet. The people who worked at Meridian knew her board knew her lawyers knew her, but the average employee at any of the companies under Meridian's umbrella, they had no idea, which meant that Ryan Carter, who had been going to work every day for years at Crestwood Solutions, had been working for his wife without knowing it. Let that sink in for a moment. Every morning he kissed her goodbye. Every evening he came home and sometimes complained about the management. Sometimes he would sit at the dinner table and say things like, "The people running this company don't know what they are doing." He would say things like, "If I was in charge, things would be different." He would say, "I am honestly the smartest person in that office." And Kate would nod and pour him more water and say, "I'm sure you are, Ryan." She was not being mean. She was not playing a game out of cruelty. She just had her reasons for staying quiet. She had plans that she was still working on, and she believed for a long time that Ryan would come around, that the man she married was still in there somewhere, that eventually the good version of him would return. But the good version of Ryan was not coming back. It was leaving faster and faster every day. 6 months before the divorce, Ryan came home one evening and sat down at the kitchen table with a look on his face that Kate had learned to recognize. It was the look he wore when he was about to say something that would hurt her, but that he had already decided to say no matter what. "I need to talk to you," he said. Kate was washing dishes. She turned off the water and dried her hands slowly. She turned around and leaned against the counter and looked at him. "Okay," she said. "I've been thinking," Ryan said, "that you should get a real job." Kate blinked. "Excuse me?" "A real job," he said again. "You know, something with a salary, something stable. What you're doing from home, whatever it is, it just doesn't feel like enough. I need a partner who is contributing, equally." Kate looked at him for a long moment. "I contribute, Ryan." "You do things," he said, waving his hand in a vague way. "But it's not the same. I'm out there every day building a real career at a real company, and you're here doing, what, emails? Calls? I don't even know what you do all day." "You've never asked," Kate said quietly. "I'm asking now." Kate looked at her husband, this man she had loved, this man she had supported and helped and cheered for and believed in, and she made a decision in that moment. Not a loud decision, not a dramatic one, just a quiet, firm, final decision. She was not going to explain herself to him. Not today. "I'm fine, Ryan," she said. She turned back to the sink and turned the water back on. Ryan sat at the table for a few more minutes, looking irritated. Then he got up, grabbed his phone, and went to the bedroom. That night, Kate sat in her home office after Ryan went to sleep, and she called her lawyer. Not to file for divorce. Not yet. She just wanted to be ready. At Crestwood Solutions, Ryan had been chasing a promotion for 2 years. Senior Director of Operations. That was the title he wanted. It came with a corner office. It came with a significantly bigger salary. It came with a team of people reporting directly to him. And most importantly, to Ryan's mind, it came with respect. The kind of respect that he felt he had been owed for a long time. He had applied twice before and been passed over. Both times he had come home in a dark mood and Kate had talked him down. She had reminded him of his strengths. She had helped him see what he could do differently. The second time he was passed over, she had actually helped him prepare a new strategy document that he submitted to the leadership team and that had genuinely impressed them. He did not tell Kate that they had praised his strategy. He did not tell her that his stock at the company had risen significantly after that document. He took the credit alone, and he wore it quietly. The third time he applied for the promotion, something was different. The company had recently undergone some leadership changes. There was a new person overseeing the executive decisions, a new voice that was being filtered down through management. The head of HR, a woman named Patricia, had called Ryan into her office and told him that this cycle, he was the leading candidate. Ryan had floated home that day. He had actually smiled at Kate over dinner, something he had not done in weeks. He had been almost warm, almost like the old Ryan. Kate noticed. She did not say anything. She just watched. 3 weeks later, Patricia called Ryan into her office again. "Congratulations," she said. "You've been selected for Senior Director of Operations." Ryan felt the blood rush through his body. He felt 10 feet tall. He stood up and shook Patricia's hand, and he had to press his lips together to stop himself from yelling out loud. He walked back to his desk in a daze. Senior Director, he had done it. He was going to get the corner office. He was going to get the team. He was going to get the salary. He was going to get the respect. He picked up his phone and he called his best friend, a man named Greg. "Greg," he said, "I got it. I got the promotion, man." Greg celebrated with him loudly over the phone. They made plans to go out that evening and celebrate. They would have drinks. They would celebrate the new Ryan Carter, the man who had finally made it. Ryan sat at his desk for a moment after he hung up, and he thought about calling Kate. He picked up the phone. He put it back down. He would tell her later, he decided. Tonight was about him. He deserved to celebrate with people who really understood what this meant. Kate had never worked in a corporate environment. She would not really get it the way Greg would. That thought sat comfortably in Ryan's head because it fit the version of his wife he had built in his mind. The version who did small, unimportant things. The version who needed to get a real job. The version who was lucky to be married to someone as driven as him. If he had known the truth at that moment, he might have called her. But he did not know, and so he did not call. That night, Ryan and Greg went out. They drank and they laughed, and Ryan talked for most of the night. He talked about how hard he had worked. He talked about how he had always known he was meant for more. He talked about what he was going to do with the new title, the new salary, the new power. And somewhere between the second and third drink, he said something that he could not take back. "Honestly, Greg, this is the moment I've been waiting for. Not just at work, in my whole life. I feel like I can finally be who I'm supposed to be." Greg looked at him. "What do you mean?" Ryan swirled his drink. "I mean, I've been holding myself back, keeping myself small, because of my life at home, because of Kate." Greg frowned. "Kate? What does Kate have to do with your promotion?" "She doesn't," Ryan said. "That's my point. I did this on my own. I built this. And I'm starting to think that if I want to keep building, I need to stop being weighed down." Greg was quiet for a moment. "Ryan, are you talking about leaving Kate?" Ryan looked into his glass. "I'm talking about living the life I actually want." Greg did not look as excited as Ryan expected. In fact, Greg looked uncomfortable. He cleared his throat. "Man, Kate is a good woman. You know that, right?" "She is," Ryan agreed. "But good isn't the same as right. Not anymore." Greg opened his mouth, closed it. Then he said, "You've been talking to Linda, haven't you?" It was not a question. Ryan did not answer. And in that silence, Greg understood everything. Ryan came home that night and Kate was already in bed. He stood in the doorway of their bedroom and looked at her sleeping. The room was dark and quiet. Kate was curled up on her side of the bed, her hair loose around her face. She looked peaceful. She looked like the woman he had fallen in love with years ago, before he started seeing her as something less than what she was. He felt something then, a small thing, a flicker, like a lighter that sparks but does not catch. But he pushed it down. He had made up his mind. And Ryan Carter, once he made up his mind about something, did not like to unmake it. He told himself it was because he was strong. He told himself it was because he was decisive. What he did not tell himself was that it was also because he was afraid. Afraid that if he sat with the decision long enough, he might change it. And he did not want to change it. He went to the guest room that night. The next morning, Kate was already up and at the kitchen table with her laptop open and her coffee beside her when Ryan came downstairs. She was on a call. A quiet one, but he could see her lips moving. She had earphones in. She held up one finger when she saw him, the universal sign for one moment. Ryan poured himself coffee and stood by the window and waited. Kate finished her call and took out her earphones. "Morning," she said. "Morning," he said. There was a pause. "You slept in the guest room," she said. "Yes." "Okay." She looked at him steadily, not angry, not hurt, just watching. "Kate," he said, "I want a divorce." The kitchen was very quiet. Kate wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. She looked down at the table for just a moment, then back up at Ryan. "All right," she said. Ryan blinked. He had expected more. He had expected tears or anger or begging. He had prepared for all of those things in his head. He had not prepared for one quiet word that landed like a door closing softly. "That's it?" he said. "All right?" "What would you like me to say, Ryan?" "I don't know, something." Kate looked at him. "I think we both know this has been coming for a long time," she said. Her voice was very calm, almost gentle. "I'm not going to fight you. If you want a divorce, we can do that." Ryan felt strangely unsatisfied, like he had expected a war and instead got a shrug. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," he said, wanting to reclaim some control of the moment. "So have I," Kate said. Ryan stared at her. Kate took a sip of her coffee and turned back to her laptop. The papers were signed within 30 days. Ryan's lawyer was pleased with the settlement. Kate did not fight for much. She asked for the house, which Ryan had expected since he was going to be buying something new with his new salary anyway. She asked for a reasonable monthly payment. She did not drag things out. She did not make scenes. She was, right to the end, quiet and steady and composed. Ryan interpreted this as proof that he had been right, that she was fine, that she would be fine, that she had not contributed much to his life, and so she did not have much to lose. He told Greg, "See, she barely put up a fight. That tells you everything." Greg, who had been growing quieter and quieter around Ryan in recent weeks, just nodded and said nothing. The day the divorce was finalized, Ryan Carter walked out of the lawyer's office in his best suit, and he breathed in the fresh air, and he told himself he was free. He had his promotion. He had his future. He had Linda, who had been texting him congratulations all morning. He was, in his own mind, at the top of the world. He did not know that below his feet, the ground was already starting to shift. Ryan's first week as Senior Director of Operations was everything he had imagined. He moved into the corner office. He met his new team. He sat in on executive meetings. He sent emails with his new title in the signature and felt a little rush every time. He took Linda out to dinner on Friday night and let her fuss over him and tell him how amazing he was, and he soaked it up like dry ground soaking up rain. He barely thought about Kate. When he did think about her, it was briefly and with a sort of satisfied feeling, like he had solved a problem, like he had cleared away something that was blocking his path, and now the path was open. He moved into a new apartment, a nice one, downtown, with big windows and a view of the city. He bought new furniture. He had groceries delivered. He started working out again in the building's gym. Everything felt fresh and new and full of possibility. And then, in his third week as senior director, he had his first executive meeting with the leadership team above him. This was a big meeting. This was where he would finally sit at the real table. Not the junior table, the real one, where the people who actually ran things would be. He wore his sharpest suit. He prepared his notes. He walked in with his chest out and his chin up. The meeting room was large, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a long glass table. There were about 12 people in the room, most of them Ryan recognized. His direct manager, Tom, the CFO, a man named Gary, the head of legal, a woman named Susan, and then there was a woman at the head of the table who Ryan did not recognize. She was dressed simply, a dark blazer, a white top. Her hair was pulled back. She had a small smile on her face, the kind of smile that does not give much away. She was looking through a folder of papers, and she did not look up when Ryan walked in. Tom leaned over to Ryan and said quietly, "The woman at the head of the table, that's our new board representative. She's been overseeing the company on behalf of Meridian. Started coming to these meetings last month." Ryan nodded. He took his seat. The woman at the head of the table finished, looking at her papers, and looked up, and Ryan's whole body went cold. Because the woman sitting at the head of the table, the Meridian board representative, the person who was overseeing the company that Ryan had just been promoted to senior director at, was a woman he knew very well. Her name was Ann Bloom, Kate's best friend and her closest business partner. Ryan sat very still. Ann looked around the room and her eyes landed on Ryan. For just a fraction of a second, something moved across her face. Not surprise, she had known Ryan was going to be in this room. The something that moved across her face was different. It was the look of a person who knows something important that the other person does not know yet, and who has been waiting patiently for this moment. Then she smiled, a professional, even smile. "Good morning, everyone," she said. "Let's get started." Ryan could barely hear the words of the meeting. His mind was churning. Ann Bloom, Meridian Partners. He knew Kate and Ann had been friends since before he and Kate got married. He knew they were close. He knew they talked regularly. He had always found Ann a little too sharp for his taste, a little too direct. He had never liked the way she looked at him, like she was reading something written on his forehead that he could not see. But what was she doing here? What was Meridian Partners? His hands were completely still on the table, but his mind was running at 100 miles per hour. He waited until the meeting was over. He was one of the last people to leave the room. Ann was gathering her papers. "Ann," he said. She looked up. "Ryan, I didn't know you were involved with Meridian." "There are a lot of things you didn't know," she said pleasantly. She closed her folder. "Congratulations on the promotion, by the way." She picked up her bag and walked past him, out of the room. Ryan stood in the empty meeting room for a long moment. Then he went back to his office and he opened his computer and he started searching. What Ryan finds out is going to change the entire way you see this story. Ryan had never been the type to dig deep into research. He was more of a surface person. He read headlines, not full articles. He formed opinions quickly and rarely revised them. But that afternoon, in his new corner office with the city view, he dug. He started with Meridian Partners. It took him a while to find much because Meridian was structured in a way that did not put names on the front page. But he found a press release from a few years back, a profile piece in a business magazine, a mention in a trade journal, and then he found a name, holding company, majority stakeholder, listed quietly in the company filings, K. Carter. His hands went still on the keyboard. K. Carter, Catherine Carter, Kate. He sat back in his chair and the office felt like it had suddenly become a different room. Like the walls had moved an inch closer, like the air had changed quality. Kate owned Meridian Partners, and Meridian Partners owned Crestwood Solutions. And Crestwood Solutions was the company Ryan Carter had been working at for years. The company he had bragged about at dinner parties. The company he had told Kate she could never understand. The company where he had just received his big promotion as Senior Director of Operations. The promotion that had come from a board that answered to Meridian. The promotion that had, in the end, been approved by his wife. His ex-wife. The woman he had handed divorce papers to exactly 41 days ago. Ryan's head was spinning. He pressed his palms flat on the desk and took a slow breath. He thought about all the evenings he had sat at the dinner table and complained about the management at Crestwood. All the times he had said the leadership did not know what it was doing. All the times he had said things like, "If I was in charge, things would be different." He thought about the times he had told Kate about a strategy he had submitted, a document that had actually been Kate's idea, the document that had made the leadership team sit up and notice him. He thought about all of that and he felt a slow, creeping heat move from his stomach up to his face. He thought about what he had said to Greg at that bar. "I feel like I can finally be who I'm supposed to be." He thought about what he had told Linda on the phone. "I built this myself. Nobody gave me anything." He sat in that chair for a very long time. Then he picked up his phone and he called Kate. It rang 4 times. "Hello, Ryan." Her voice was calm. It was always calm. He had always taken that calmness for granted, and now, suddenly, it made a completely different kind of sense to him. "Kate," he said. His voice came out thinner than he wanted it to. "I need to talk to you." "Okay?" "I was doing some research today about Meridian Partners." Silence. "Kate."
Yes?
"You own it." Another silence, shorter this time. "Yes," she said. The word hit him like something solid. "And you own Crestwood." "Meridian has a majority stake in Crestwood Solutions." "Yes." "So you," he said slowly, "you own the company I work at." "You worked at," she said gently. "We're divorced, Ryan." The correction landed on top of everything else, like one last stone on an already heavy pile. "Why didn't you tell me?" he said. "You never asked what I did." "Kate, you assumed," she said. Her voice was still gentle, not sharp, not cruel, just honest. "You assumed that what I was doing from home was small and unimportant. You told me I should get a real job. You told me you needed a partner who was contributing equally. You sat at my table and told me about the management of my company and said they did not know what they were doing." Ryan pressed his hand over his eyes. "Kate, I never lied to you," she said. "I just never corrected you." "That's not fair." "Maybe not," she said, "but it is true." Ryan could not speak for a moment. "The promotion," he said finally. "Did you approve it? Did you specifically approve my promotion?" The pause before she answered was 3 seconds long. Ryan counted them. "The board approved it," she said. "I was part of that decision, yes." Ryan exhaled a long, rough breath. "Why?" he said. If you knew we were heading toward divorce, if you knew what was happening, why did you approve it?" "Because you earned it," Kate said simply. "Whatever else was happening between us, you worked hard. You deserved the promotion. I wasn't going to take that away from you just because our marriage was falling apart." Ryan had no words. He sat in the corner office that his wife's company had given him, behind the title that his wife's board had approved, looking at the city view that his new salary, coming from his wife's company, was paying for. And he felt very, very small. Ryan went home that night and he sat in his expensive new apartment and he stared at the ceiling. He called Linda. She answered on the second ring. "Hey you, how was the big meeting?" Ryan opened his mouth to tell her. He stopped. He thought about how Linda would react. Linda, who had been so impressed by his promotion. Linda, who told him regularly how amazing he was for building such a career for himself. Linda, who liked the Ryan Carter who was a high-powered executive at a growing company. Would she still be so impressed if she knew he had been working for his wife this whole time? He decided not to tell her. "Good," he said. Meeting was good. You sound weird. Long day. Okay, I'll come over? No, he said. Not tonight. Linda was quiet for a moment. Ryan, are you okay? I'm fine, he said. I just need to think. He hung up and lay back on his couch and stared at the ceiling some more. He thought about the past 7 years. He thought about how Kate had been, quietly all this time. He thought about the way she used to sit in her home office late at night after he had gone to bed. He had thought she was just browsing the internet or chatting with friends. He had never once imagined she was running a company, building an empire, making decisions that, it turned out, affected his own life without him knowing. He thought about all the mornings he had left for work and kissed her on the cheek like she was something he was leaving behind, something waiting for his return, something that existed mostly in relation to him. And all that time, she was doing this. She had been. Right there, right next to him, and he had not seen any of it because he had not thought to look. The next morning, Ryan did something he had not done in a very long time. He called Greg. Not to celebrate, not to brag, just to talk. Greg listened. He listened all the way through. He did not interrupt. He did not say he told Ryan so, though he could have said exactly that. He just listened. When Ryan was done, Greg was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you know what the worst part is?" "What?" "She promoted you anyway. After everything, after the way you treated her, after what you did, she still approved your promotion because she thought you deserved it." Ryan was quiet. "That woman," Greg said carefully, "loved you in a way that was a lot bigger than you understood, and you walked away from it because you thought you were too good for it." Ryan had nothing to say to that, because Greg was right. And somewhere in the part of himself that he had been avoiding for the past several months, he had known Greg was right all along. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, 3 weeks after Ryan had found out the truth about Kate and Meridian and Crestwood Solutions, something arrived in his work email. It was a brief message from the HR department. "Dear Mr. Carter, please report to the HR office at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for a scheduled review meeting." Review meeting. Ryan's stomach dropped. He had been at Crestwood for years. He knew what a review meeting was. They happened for a few reasons: performance issues, company restructuring, or termination. He arrived at the HR office the next morning at 9:58. Patricia was there, and across the table sat Ann Bloom. Ryan looked at Ann. Ann looked at Ryan. "Please sit down," Patricia said. Ryan sat. Patricia folded her hands on the desk. "Ryan, I want to be transparent with you. Meridian Partners has been conducting a routine structural review of Crestwood Solutions. As part of that review, several positions are being evaluated, including Senior Director of Operations." Ryan's jaw was tight. "I just got that position 3 weeks ago." "Yes," Patricia said, "and that timing is unfortunate. But the review was already underway, and the findings have led to some restructuring decisions." Ryan looked at Ann. "Is this coming from Meridian?" Ann met his eyes evenly. "The decision came from the board, yes." "And you're on the board?" "Yes." Ryan felt the anger rising in his throat. "So this is personal," he said. Ann's expression did not change. "This is business, Ryan. Crestwood is reorganizing its senior leadership structure. The Senior Director of Operations role is being merged with another department. It is not a performance review. You will receive a full severance package." "You're firing me." "The position is being eliminated," Patricia said carefully. Ryan looked at Ann. He wanted her to flinch, to look away, to show some sign that this was about Kate, about the divorce, about revenge. But Ann's face was a smooth, professional wall. "Was this Kate's decision?" he said. "Kate is the majority stakeholder," Ann said. "All major structural decisions go through the board." "That is not what I asked." Ann was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Kate did not request your termination, Ryan. She signed off on the structural changes. She did not know your position would be affected specifically until after the decision was made. Ryan was not sure he believed that. He was also not sure he disbelieved it. He signed the paperwork. He collected his things from the corner office. He took the elevator down and walked out of the Crestwood Solutions building for the last time. He stood on the sidewalk in the morning sun, and he thought about the fact that he had bragged about this company at dinner parties. He had told people it was one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the region. He had used the name Crestwood Solutions like a badge of honor. He had felt superior to men who worked at lesser companies. He had felt superior to his own wife because she was not working at a company like this. And the whole time, she was the reason the company existed at all. He had been wearing her badge without knowing it, and now even that was gone. While Ryan was going through all of this, what was Kate doing? She was working. She was always working, but she was also, in the quiet moments between things, feeling the weight of everything. Kate was not a cold person. She was not a robot. She did not walk away from her 7-year marriage without carrying something from it. She had loved Ryan, genuinely, for a long time. She had believed in him. She had invested in him in ways he would probably never fully know or understand. The nights after the divorce were harder than she let anyone see. She would be fine during the day, moving through meetings and decisions and phone calls. But at night, in the house that was hers now, the silence was very loud. She would sit in the living room where they used to watch television together. She would walk into the kitchen where they used to eat dinner. Small, ordinary places that now felt like they were full of something invisible. She did not cry in front of anyone, but she cried. Anne knew. Anne always knew. She would call Kate late in the evening sometimes and just talk about nothing, just keep the line open, just be a voice in the silence. "Do you regret it?" Anne asked her once. Not the divorce. She did not mean the divorce. She meant the secret. The years of not telling Ryan about Meridian and Crestwood and all of it. Kate thought about it for a moment. "No," she said. "I don't regret not telling him. I regret that he never asked." Anne was quiet. "That's a very Kate answer." "What does that mean?" "It means," Anne said carefully, "that you are still being more understanding of him than he deserves." Kate did not argue with that. She just looked out the window at the dark garden and she said, "I kept hoping he would see me. I kept thinking, maybe today is the day he asks what I actually do. Maybe today is the day he wants to know who I actually am." And he never did. "And he never did," Kate agreed. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what the saddest part is? He did see me once. In the beginning, he saw me so clearly. And I fell in love with the man who saw me, not the man who stopped looking." Anne had no response to that. Sometimes there is no response. Sometimes the truth is just true, and you let it sit there. About a week after Ryan's termination, Kate was in a meeting when her assistant stepped in and put a note on her desk. It read, "Ryan Carter is in the lobby. He says it's personal." Kate looked at the note for a moment. She finished her meeting. Then she went to the lobby. Ryan was standing near the entrance, still in the suit he apparently wore everywhere. He looked tired in a way that went past just physical tiredness. He looked like a man who had not been sleeping well, like a man who was carrying something heavy and had run out of places to set it down. "Kate," he said. "Ryan," she said, "I didn't know you worked out of this building." "I don't usually. I had meetings here today." He nodded slowly. He looked around the lobby like he was trying to find the right words on the walls. "I'm not here to make trouble," he said. "Okay. He stopped. He pressed his lips together and then tried again. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry." Kate did not say anything. "I know that doesn't fix anything," he said. "I know it's too late. I know there's nothing to go back to." He exhaled. "But I've been sitting with everything I know now, everything I found out, and I needed you to know that I'm sorry. For not seeing you, for not asking, for assuming, for all of it. Kate looked at her ex-husband. She looked at the tired eyes and the stiff shoulders and the man underneath the suit who was, in this moment, smaller and more honest than she had seen him be in years. She said, "I know." He nodded. "Is that all?" she said. He gave a short, rough sound that was almost a laugh. "I guess I thought you might say more. What would you like me to say?" He thought about it. "I don't know. That it's okay, maybe." "It's not okay," she said. "Not unkindly. What you did is not okay, but I am okay. And I think you will be okay eventually too, if you are honest with yourself." He nodded again slowly. "Ryan," she said, and her voice was gentle, "you are a smart man. You do good work. You really did earn that promotion. That part was real. But you spent so much time looking at yourself and so little time looking at the people around you. At me. That's a hard habit to break, but you're going to have to break it." He swallowed. "Yeah. Go," she said softly. "Build something. Build it the right way this time. Actually build it. Don't borrow someone else's foundation and call it your own." He looked at her for one more moment, then he turned and walked out of the lobby. Kate stood there for a moment after the door closed. Then she went back to her meeting. Linda did not stay. That surprised Ryan more than it probably should have. When Ryan lost his position at Crestwood, Linda's energy shifted almost immediately. She still called. She still came over sometimes, but the warmth had thinned out. She was less interested in long evenings. She was more distracted, more ready to leave. The conversations that used to stretch past midnight now ended before 10. Ryan was not stupid. He saw what was happening. Linda had been attracted to the version of Ryan who had power and a corner office and a title. That version had existed for exactly 3 weeks, and now it was gone. One evening, about 2 months after his termination, Linda sat across from him at his kitchen table and said, "I think we both know this isn't working." Ryan looked at her. He thought about the way he had told Greg that Kate was holding him back, that he needed a partner who inspired him, that he needed someone who matched his level. He thought about how sure he had been of all of that. He thought about how he had handed Kate divorce papers on the best day of his professional life because he was so certain that he was finally where he was meant to be and that she was not part of the view. "Yeah," he said, "I know." Linda left that evening and did not come back. Ryan sat in his apartment, and for the first time in as long as he could remember, he let himself actually feel what he was feeling. Not push it down, not replace it with something else, just feel it. He felt the loss of Kate. He felt it the way you feel something that has been missing for a while, and you did not notice until the place where it should be becomes very obvious and very empty. He called Greg. "She left," he said. "Linda?" "Yeah." Greg was quiet. Then he said, "Are you okay?" "No," Ryan said, and it was the most honest thing he had said in a long time. "Do you want to come over?" "Yeah," Ryan said. "Yeah, I do." He drove to Greg's house and they sat in Greg's backyard and they talked. Not about success or promotions or titles. Just talked. Like they used to, before Ryan got too busy being important to be a real person. Greg said at one point, "You know what I always admired about Kate?" Ryan looked at him. "She never needed you to see her to know who she was. She knew who she was. She just would have liked it if you'd seen her. Not for her sake, for yours." Ryan looked up at the night sky above Greg's backyard. "I know," he said. "Do you know how rare that is?" Greg said. "A person who is that secure, that steady, that is genuinely okay with themselves. And you had that person in your life every single day, and you spent your time looking everywhere else." Ryan had nothing to say. He sat there under the sky and felt the full weight of it. Kate had never planned for her story to become public. She was a private person. She did not like attention. She did not look for it. She had always structured her business life specifically so that her name would not be the loudest name in any room. But these things have a way of getting out. A journalist at a business publication had been doing a piece on Meridian Partners and the growth of its portfolio companies. In the process of researching, she came across the name Kate Carter. She dug further. She found that Kate Carter was the same Kate Carter who had recently divorced Ryan Carter, now former Senior Director of Operations at Crestwood Solutions, one of Meridian's holdings. The journalist connected the dots. She wrote a short piece. It was not meant to be a hit piece. It was meant to be a profile, a positive one. It talked about Kate's business acumen. It talked about how she had built Meridian quietly and patiently. It mentioned briefly and tactfully the divorce. The piece was published online on a Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, it had been shared thousands of times. By Thursday, it had been picked up by larger publications. By Friday, Kate Carter was a name that a lot of people suddenly wanted to know. Ryan saw it on Thursday morning when Greg texted him a link. He sat in his apartment and he read the whole thing. He read about his ex-wife's 10 years of building. He read about the vision she had had. He read about the specific strategies she had used. He read about the quiet, methodical way she had turned one small company into a network of growing businesses. He read the part near the end of the article that mentioned, in a single sentence, that she had recently been through a divorce. He put his phone down and he sat there for a long time. His phone started buzzing. People he had not spoken to in months were texting him. Old co-workers, acquaintances, people who had been at dinner parties where Ryan had complained about his wife not having a real job. He did not respond to any of them. He picked his phone back up and went back to the article, and he read it one more time, slowly this time, all the way through. He read the last quote in the piece, which was something Kate had said during her interview with the journalist. She had said, "I've always believed that the work you do speaks louder than any introduction you can give yourself. You just have to be patient enough to let it." Ryan put his phone face down on the table. He sat in the quiet of his apartment, in the city that his ex-wife's company's salary had helped him move to, in a life that looked nothing like the life he had imagined 3 months ago when he had walked out of the lawyer's office feeling like he was free. He thought about patience. He thought about what it meant to let your work speak for itself. He thought about a woman who had done exactly that for years, right next to him, while he was busy making noise. 6 months after the divorce, Ryan had a new job. Not at a big firm, not with a corner office, a mid-level position at a smaller company. He had applied for it honestly. He had not used his old title or his old connections to talk himself into rooms he had not actually earned. He had walked in with his actual resume, his actual skills, and his actual work. He had gotten the job on his own. It paid less than Crestwood. The office was smaller. The team was newer. But something about it felt more solid under his feet than anything had in a long time. He was also going to therapy. Greg had suggested it, awkwardly, and Ryan had gotten defensive about it for about 2 weeks before finally making the appointment. And once he started going, he realized how much he had been carrying, how much he had been running from, how many things he had done in the name of ambition that were actually just fear wearing a different coat. He did not get back with Linda. He did not try. He did not reach out to Kate again. He had said what he had to say in that lobby, and she had said what she needed to say back. That felt like a completed chapter, and he left it where it was. He thought about her sometimes. He would not pretend otherwise. He thought about her, and he felt a complicated thing that was made up of regret and respect and sadness, and something that might have been, after all this time, a real and honest kind of admiration. He had been living next to something remarkable for 7 years, and he had treated it like wallpaper. That was something he was going to carry for a long time. Kate, for her part, was doing what Kate always did, working, building, moving forward. She gave one more interview a few months after the first article. She did not talk about Ryan in it. She talked about the company. She talked about what she was building next. She talked about a new initiative she was starting to support other women who were quietly building things while the world assumed they were doing nothing. She called the initiative Seen. The interviewer asked her what inspired the name. Kate smiled and said, "Sometimes the best motivation is an experience you want to make sure someone else doesn't have to repeat." The interviewer nodded and moved on to the next question. And Kate moved with her, forward, toward whatever was next. Here is the thing about this story. It is easy to look at Ryan Carter and see the villain. And he did villainous things. He was arrogant. He was blind. He was cruel in small, everyday ways that add up over time. He ignored his wife. He looked down on her. He took everything she gave him and called it his own success. He traded her in on the best day of his professional life. All of that is true. But the most painful part of this story is not what Ryan did. The most painful part is what Ryan missed. He missed 7 years with a woman who was extraordinary. He missed 7 years of real partnership. He missed 7 years of being actually seen by someone who loved him. He missed the kind of love that does not shrink itself to make you comfortable, but gives you the space to grow and the honesty to push you forward. He mistook her quietness for smallness, and her patience for weakness, and her love for something he was entitled to. And by the time he understood what he had, it was already gone. That is the real cost. Not the job, not the money, not the promotion or the corner office or the title. The cost was 7 years of a good life that he spent pointing in the wrong direction. And Kate paid a different price. She paid the price of loving someone who could not see her. She paid the price of years of hoping that he would look up from himself long enough to notice what was right beside him. She paid that in small, quiet ways every single day, but she walked out of it with her dignity intact. She walked out of it knowing exactly who she was. She walked out of it with her work, her vision, and her future all clearly in front of her. She did not need him to see her to know what she was worth. She always knew. And that, in the end, is the most powerful thing about this story. Not the company, not the secret, not the twist. The most powerful thing is a woman who knew what she was worth and kept going anyway, even when the person who was supposed to see it clearly chose to look away. Do you think Ryan truly learned his lesson? Or do you think some people never change? And most importantly, do you think Kate was right to stay quiet all those years? Or should she have said something sooner? Drop your thoughts on the comment below. Let me know what you think. And if this story moved you, please share it with somebody who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are not subscribed yet. We tell stories like this every week. Stories about real things, real choices, real consequences. Stories that make you think. Thank you for watching all through to the end. We will see you in the next video.